All right, we're on. Okay, everybody. Welcome. Go ahead and take a roll real quick. You're not going to use your Chromebooks yet, so please just have those closed. Anybody have any questions for me right now? As it is? It's been well. It's been really well. I got to get here a little late today, which is nice. Because I prepped first period. That's cool. How are you all doing?
Pretty bad.
I'm ready for break. Yeah, 100%. Totally ready for break. We got a couple more days. Friday is kind of a joke, right? Yeah. It's like half day, 20-minute periods.
Why the half day?
We got till 30.
For break? I'm not sure what's playing that day. I might not even be here because I got an interview.
Big drop.
All right, let's see. Patrick's here, Allison's here, Maria's not here. Marco, Isaac, Evelyn, Allison, Riley, Kaden,
It was you, Nick. Wow.
Josh,
Do you know the background of the name of this?
No water music?
Oh wait, no, she's here. She's just in the NPR.
Okay.
Who's going to replace it?
James here.
Josh, are you going to
Nah,
Chris.
I didn't buy a ticket.
All right, everybody. Thank you. So, last period we covered World War II. We're back at it. We're at the end of the war, right? We covered Stalingrad. We were talking about that a little bit. I'm going to backtrack a little bit on what we talked about last time. Battle of Stalingrad, Nazis made it deep into Russia, right? They're attacking the namesake city of Joseph Stalin. It was a 7-month grueling urban warfare battle. What's urban warfare?
City war.
Fighting in the city.
Fighting in the town,
Yeah, in an open field or something like that, right? It's fighting in the city, so using the buildings, using houses, hospitals, schools, and stuff as a place for the conflict. Let's see. Stalin, did he allow civilians to leave?
No.
Nah, he said you're gonna stay here. You're either gonna fight or you're gonna help. Thought it would help bring up morale and stuff for the troops themselves. And a lot died, right? A lot of civilians died. A lot of innocent civilians died.
More civilians than soldiers.
Yeah, we went through urban warfare, civilian casualties. We talked about the fighting. We watched this little clip from Enemy at the Gates with the Russian sniper. We talked a little bit about this guy. Wait, the next one? Oh no, yeah, Vasily, who killed a lot of people from the sniper vantage positions. Let's see. So Nazis lost, right? We got that to that part. They surrender. It's the first time they surrender like in an open battle. They didn't really lose the Battle of Britain. They just kind of gave up. They just said, whatever, we're just gonna give this up for a little bit. But it wasn't really they didn't take an L for that, right? But this was a turning point in the war. This is when the writing was on the wall. So remember this phrase right here, turning point in the war. Stalin successfully beat the Germans and kind of pushed them back. And as they were pushing them back, they didn't just give up, like pushing them. As soon as they got out of Russia, they kept on pushing into Eastern Europe back to Germany, right? So it was like almost a counter invasion, basically. The other one, the Nazis fight to the last man, but instead they surrendered. This is also kind of a common thing. Throw it, please. Of the 220,000 Nazis in Stalingrad, only about 90K lived, and then about 9,000 survived the Gulag because they were all taken prisoner afterwards, right? And it's, like I said, once again, reiterating, this was a turning point in the war, and it signaled the inevitable defeat of the Nazis. Basically, they knew the Nazis were going to lose. It was just a matter of when at this point. Okay, we watched this. This is all the deaths. Who took the most casualties?
Russia.
You guys remember the second most?
China.
China took the second most. Yeah, well, Russia is still the but China took the second most. Yes. It's kind of, I mean, you have it on. You weren't here. We're not gonna watch it again. You have it available though on your program. You watch it there. Okay. But yeah, this basically, it's kind of it's a really boring video, Marco. It just kind of goes through every single country that everybody's does. But it kind of really puts into perspective, this really was a world war. You know, they call World War I the Great War. Yeah, there were some battles outside of Europe, but for the most part, it was fought in Europe, right, on the Eastern and Western front. This was literally fought all around the world, with all these countries taking massive casualties. Okay. Now, back to our first guiding question. What was the Battle of Stalingrad? We kind of just went over it. We talked about it in depth yesterday. Anybody want to take a crack at this? What was the Battle of Stalingrad?
It was the battle against the Germans and the Russians that happened inside of Stalingrad.
It stopped the German invasion in Soviet Union and pushed them back, right? It was the turning point of the war, okay? All right, we're on to the new stuff. So that was going on the Eastern Front, right? That was the Nazis' failed invasion of Soviet Union. On the West, though, with Italy out of the picture, the Allies set their sights on liberating France from the Nazis. The Allies, under General Dwight D. Eisenhower, planned a massive invasion of France. So this wasn't an invasion of Germany. This was an invasion of Nazi-occupied, German-occupied France. So they're invading France, trying to liberate France, because France got taken pretty fast, right? Yeah. Cool. And France is like just a really old ally, especially during, back to World War I. So this took place on the beaches of Normandy. We're gonna go over that. I got some maps for you. And the invasion was named Operation Overlord. That was the name of the actual operation of the plan to invade France. And this occurred January 6th, but the date is forever known as D-Day. That's what most people know it as. It's the day that, this is the day of the invasion. A lot of planning, a lot of prep went into this. And let's start. This is General Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was the leader. He was the general of the Allied troops, both in Europe, but as well as the fights in North Africa that was going on. And does anybody know? Does anybody know who he became after a general? What was his job? Yeah, he was president. He was president later on. I like World War II because a lot of the pictures, they're a little more modern, but lately they've learned how to colorize them. So this is actually an originally black and white picture, but they colorized it, so it's pretty cool. It's like HD. But anyways, we're gonna do our first activity right now. It's gonna be a warm up, but it's essentially looking at his speech that he gave the troops the day before the actual the invasion. So if you want to go ahead and open up your Chromebooks now. And you should have signed right now. There we go. Sign. Stapler? Yep, stapler. Oh, I didn't know we had a stapler. Oh. We barely use paper. All right, everybody got that open? Sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and read it off to everybody. And then I actually put the image in with the warm-up. There's just a couple questions on there that I want you to answer. Try to get your mind in a place of what if you were there? What if this person was telling you this? So, this is from the Supreme Headquarters of the Allied Expeditionary Force. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force. You are about to embark upon the Great Crusade, towards which, I'm sorry, my laptop, sorry. Toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you, the hopes and prayers of liberty. Loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained, well equipped, and battle hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940 to 41. The United States have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle. Our air offensive has seriously reduced war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion, and duty to skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessings of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. General Whitey Eisenhower. So, if you need to, you can read, keep on looking at the actual text itself if you need help with questions. But the questions are really more of your opinion. How do you think, what kind of language is he using? Is it really kind of courageous, heroic language? Is it kind of sad and be like, oh man, I don't know if we got this? And then the other question is, what's going on in this? What kind of emotions does he want the soldiers to feel during this? Are they doing a good thing? Are they doing a bad thing? Is it neutral? So go ahead and finish that up. It's not too long of a warm up. And then go ahead and get your Chromebooks when you're done, okay? Don't forget to submit it, too.
I don't remember if there's something good. At least I'm double checking. I'm like, yeah. He said it should be
Ooh, no, I recently tasted the Mountain Dew pineapple flavor. That is so good. So good. It was like the perfect summer drink. Ooh, wait. Speaking of perfect summer drink, I make straight pineapple cherries. Add cherries to the bottom of the drink. And the tops.
I was yawning.
Have you all done?
That doesn't
Wait,
make your hearing bad. No. Usually for me, it's better because it makes me.
All right, I got more than half of them. I'll give you a couple more minutes to finish up your last thoughts.
Trying to find more words for bravery.
Bravery. Courage.
Got that down.
Heroic. What was it?
Heroic. There we go.
Heroic. Yeah, heroic.
Yeah, that's not a bravery.
You're like a little baby.
It's very brave for them. It's very brave. You ever
Well, why
realize
did you text me?
your belly button just expression wasn't real fake?
How would she cheat on you?
I'm like glass. I'm not dangerous until I'm broken.
You really do not know what belly button actually is.
The Willy button?
Belly button.
You said Willy button.
No, belly.
I heard Willy.
You need your hearing check.
All right, everybody, let's go ahead and close our Chromebooks now.
Belly button. Why are you Willy button?
So, let's go over this. I want to hear what you guys have to think.
Where's the where's that photo?
Good job, Josh.
What kind of tone is Eisenhower using in this?
Like a heroic and courageous.
Motivational, heroic, courageous. I like these words coming up. Determination. They're determined. What does it say at the bottom? Have full confidence in your courage. We've only said nothing less than a full victory. What kind of punctuation is he using in this? A lot.
Like exclamation.
Exclamation points. Yeah, he's yelling. He's exclaiming. He's being loud. How about the second one? Let's see. What do you think that Eisenhower wants soldiers to feel or believe as they go into battle?
That they're going to win.
That they're going to win?
No matter what.
He wants them to get motivated.
Yeah, the confidence boost, motivation to win,
They.
courage to win. How about from an ideological
He
standpoint?
wants them to feel like heroes.
He wants them to feel like heroes, like they're doing the right thing,
Yes.
like they're there to basically beat evil, right? And in many ways they are, right? Nazis are doing horrible things. Stuff is starting to come out about what's happening in Europe, guys. Thank you. Stuff started to come out about what's going on in Europe. They're like, this isn't right. These people aren't free. We're gonna go help liberate these people and liberate our friends in France who got taken over by this tyrannical government. Right? Cool. Good job. Let's go back to this. All right. So that's Eisenhower's D-Day speech. He later becomes president afterwards. I think we might get to him this semester. I'm not sure how far we'll go. We'll see. Anyways, let's talk about. Whoops. Did I miss a? Oh, I missed a slide. So, I want to talk about this right here. It was the largest amphibious attack in modern history. What does amphibious mean?
It
Land
should
and
be
water.
on land and water.
Land and water.
Like a frog.
Like a frog. Thank you. I was going to ask, what kind of animal is amphibious? A frog? I think
Salamander.
a salamander. Yeah, salamanders are too. Is there any other
Toad.
toads?
Water.
Water space? Yeah, I think that's amphibious. They're water, they're air and water. Yeah. Or they're land and water. Cool. Yeah, those are amphibians. So, this picture suggests
Mudskipper.
water and land. Or more specifically, they're coming from the water, going on the land as an invasion. Right? Cool. So, moving forward, we're going to talk about the three, because this is actually not just amphibious, it's also the air as well. They're going into the air too. So, let's talk about the ocean, how they got there. So the Allies brought a massive naval armada. You guys know how far France is from England?
Not that far.
Super close. It's like 40 miles or something. That straight right there in between. Really, really close. You can probably see it on a clear day if you're staying on one coast. 5,000 ships. I saw another number that said 7,000. I just went with the lower one just to be safe, but I'm not sure. I've tried to check the sources and I just wasn't really getting a good number. But we'll just say about 5,000 ships, which supported the troop landings. They brought all the troops over. They provided fire support and anti-aircraft guns. They had giant guns mounted to them, basically shooting at the airplanes, as well as shooting at the bunkers, the Nazi bunkers on bunker. They also transported troops and supplies, more supplies to bring into the actual the fight as well. That's sea. That's pretty standard, right? That's kind of obvious of what's happening. That's how they're gonna get the troops there. Next, the actual storming of the beach. This is the land, right? So, the invasion force landed on the beaches of Normandy by armored rafts, dropped by larger ships. The rafts that made the shore then released ground troops who ran up the beach under heavy gunfire from German machine gun placements and fortifications. We'll see what that looks like. I got a pretty good graphic for you coming up. And the main objective for the ground troops was to overrun the beach, set up a beachhead. Beachhead's basically a base, essentially, on the beach, to where they're not just coming straight from the beach and fighting on the bunkers. They actually set up a base on the beach where they could actually set up shop. They could set up like maybe an infirmary or something, and from there plan their strategy to move out into the actual mainland France. And then eventually capture key towns and link up with the airborne troops. We'll talk about them later. Can you guys see this map a little bit?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
England's kind of up here somewhere. But this is essentially, this is the beaches of Normandy right here. This is where they landed. You can see these two right here. This is two American beaches. So basically it was split up by nation on each one. There was three main nations that were part of the Allied invasion. Those three were the United States and the English, who were the bulk of the army, and then Canada brought a lot too. Canada brought a lot of soldiers. Those were the three main components of the army. But there was like 12 allied nations there. I think New Zealand was there, Australia, remnants of the French exiled after Nazis took over France, they were there too. That's in New Zealand, Poland, Polish troops, Polish exiles. They were also there too. But for the main part, they offered support. They didn't get their own beach, but these countries did. So the two U.S. beaches right here. This is Utah Beach, and then Omaha Beach. Omaha Beach was historically it was the bloodiest beach. It was the one with the most casualties. Next, we got the two British beaches. They kind of sandwiched in between Canada, or out on the outside of Canada. So we have Gold and Sword Beach right here, and in between we have Juno Beach. That's where the Canadians landed. And that's basically how it's spread out. And the whole idea was kind of they don't want to just drive a whole force in the middle, right? It's important to spread the German forces out and kind of make them, kind of weaken them up a little bit, spread them thin. So this is what those carriers look like, the ones that they landed on. It's like basically an armored carrier. So these were actually on the big troop carrier ships, and then these would drop off the ships full of troops. They're made out of wood, but they're reinforced with steel, so they're basically bulletproof. But that's how the troops basically got to the beaches, was through these big armored rafts. They had boats on them, they had guns on them. They're very fast and cheap and easy to make. Yeah, kind of scary. We're gonna watch a video from a movie in a bit, and it'll kind of show you what it was like on them. They definitely weren't like indefensible. They did have their issues as well, but they were able to bring jeeps, transports, potentially tanks. I'm not sure. I think they were able to bring tanks eventually. This is what storming the beach looked like. I'm going to talk about what the Germans had basically in place on this beach. They had a bunch of obstacles and mines and stuff and traps, so that you couldn't bring up your whole boat on there. So the actual troops had to wade through the water. They had to run through the water. What's the problem with running through the water versus running whole? Yeah, if you're running through the water, you're going like this, right? Try it. Even the sand, you're a little slow, but way worse in the water, right? That just makes you a sitting duck for machine gun fire, essentially. All right, so these are the Nazi defenses. This is how they kind of set up shop on the beach. So this was like to guard the Allied invasion. It's called the Atlantic Wall. So they kind of set up these on the beaches. So this is high tide. You guys know how tides work, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So low tide happens in the morning, right? The ocean's all the way out, and then towards later in the day it goes all the way up. The water's way higher up. So to guard against the Allied invasion of Europe, he set up Hitler laid millions of dollars in barbed wire. They poured tons of concrete to create a defensive barrier. So, as you can see, we've got these barriers here. We have these mines after that. Then we have ramps. These things called hedgehogs are basically these giant steel, they look like, what's that game? Jacks. They look like giant jacks, like giant metal jacks. And then after that, barbed wire stuff, seawall, and then you got these fortifications, these like bunkers, basically, which are for machine gun fire. There's German troops in there shooting at the people on the beach, who are essentially sitting ducks because they're coming from down here, right? So that's what was happening. As you can imagine, a lot of people died doing this. It was very bloody, very gruesome. The beaches probably turned red. Marco, fun way, please. So that's ground, right? Eventually, the ground troops are able to maintain and set up a beachhead and make a base there, and eventually move their way into France. But they had a much harder time than these guys. These guys, I think this is the coolest part of the battle, personally, as a history nerd. The air. So there was extensive air fighting in the skies of Normandy. Additionally, planes, they were shooting down, offering more support to the troops. But they also brought the paratroopers. And they played a crucial role in the successful invasion of Normandy. You guys know what a paratrooper is?
Or they jump out of the plane?
Yeah, they jump out of the plane. They're the ones with the parachutes, and they drop behind enemy lines. And so D-Day happened in the morning. They dropped the night before. And what they did is they basically dropped behind enemy lines around the towns and stuff. They did all this stuff. They secured enemy positions behind enemy lines. They disrupted German defenses, communication lines, reinforcements. So they just came with all their gear, and they just started basically creating chaos. They captured and destroyed bridges, roadways, and artillery. If you don't have bridges, you can't move your tanks. if you don't have bridges, you can't move supplies. You know, you can't move your wounded and stuff. So it kind of set up kind of a frenzy for the Nazis. And they were also there to hold ground until the main invasion forces could eventually link up with them. So think about that. You're basically sending fewer troops from behind the lines, right, with all these paratroopers. Where you're sending the main force as the smaller guys. They kind of like spies and kind of you were able to disrupt stuff. Kind of add as a distraction to the main force coming in. Paratroops continued. They faced heavy anti-aircraft fire. So obviously the planes bombed the beaches the night before, kind of softened up the defenses. But that's when they also dropped the paratroopers. They had poor weather. It was super foggy. And then navigation errors. So they got scattered a lot. You know, there's a lot of wind. And they ended up, you know, usually you're pretty good with the drop zones. You're able to find a good spot for them to drop. Not in this case. A lot of them ended up miles away from where they were supposed to be. But either way, they still linked up. Despite the chaos, they still accomplished key objectives. Like they captured Saint-Malo-Élysée, which is the first town liberated in France. So think about it, France has already been under German Nazi control for years, and you know they liberated that town. They did it immediately, basically. They seized Pegasus Bridge. That was the British. So it was mainly the U.S. Air Force as well as the Royal Air Force that did this. They blew up bridges to stop the tanks, German tanks. And like I said before, they created confusion that made it hard for Germans to respond quickly, right? And then this is what it mattered. Without the paratroopers, the beach landings would have been worse, right? Would have been more death. The Germans would have been able to, their supply lines would have still been there. It would have been easier for them to actually kill all the main invasion. Marco, put down Crest last. They weakened the German response, giving troops a better chance to establish a foothold on the beaches, and that's what they did. Without the paratroopers, it would have been really hard to establish those beachheads. All right, so this is a clip of Saving Private Ryan. It's about 9 minutes long, but it's very violent, but it's also very realistic as to what happened. Has anybody ever seen this movie?
I think so.
It's a pretty common movie, and it's a Spielberg movie.
I only know Call of Duty World War II.
Oh, yeah, this was in that. Let's see. It's got Woody from Toy Story. What? Well, he's the voice actor. That was nice. Those giant jacks I'm talking about. But that was the beach in Normandy. It was literally just mounting down these waves of Allied troops as they went up. The beach was literally red, right? It was bloody. The water was red. Yeah, I mean, if I was to watch that with eyes closed, I mean, I love Tom Hanks as an actor, but like, if I was to watch that with eyes closed, I would just think of Woody out there fighting. It's funny. Any comments on that? After we just read Eisenhower's speech to the troops literally right before this happened. How would you be feeling, going there? I would have been like, oh, damn you, Eisenhower. like this kind of sucks, right? But you really do need to be inspired, right? You gotta get why Eisenhower said what he said, because it really was sending a lot of people to do that. All right, they won though. So despite the insane battle conditions of the invasion of Normandy, Allied troops established and maintained beachhead fortifications. I don't know if you saw during that video, there was, I forgot the captions today, guys.
Captions.
Yeah, I'll be here.
All right. I think it's on. Yep. So, I don't know if you saw during the actual video itself, there was that guy that ran in with a typewriter, and he was like, "Go get a gun." That's what I meant when they were trying to set up fortifications on the beach. They're trying to set up a beachhead. He was like, "It's not time to set up a beachhead right now. We have to fight first and then set up later." And that's kind of what they were dealing with. And you saw how high up those bunkers were. Yeah, so sometimes you gotta have like a crazy grenade pitch just to throw it in there, see what happens. But yeah, it's basically a Hail Mary at that point. And that's why the paratroopers are so important, because they dropped behind enemy lines and they would disrupt what was happening on the other side of the beach. Okay, a month later, General Patton came with reinforcements, and the Allies were able to eventually move inland, and they liberated France, and they were seen as heroes as they went. Operation Overlord was a success, but I mean, Hitler's still alive. He's definitely not giving up yet. He's still going forward, and there's still much more fighting to be done. Now, Germany is sandwiched again. What other war did we see this happen?
World War I.
World War I. Yeah, this is the sequel, and literally, just like many sequels, kind of the same thing happens in the new movie. Hitler now faced the war on two fronts again, and was panicking. The Red Army was pushing the retreating Nazi army back to Germany, so it's kind of like a counter-invasion. Meanwhile, the Allies on the Western Front were pushing the previously occupied Nazi territory and liberating Western Europe as they go. At this point, you start to see some of these camps that are out there. They're like, "What the hell is happening here? This is crazy. This is horrible." But we saw that during our Holocaust last week, the Holocaust slideshow last week. In the last-ditch effort to eliminate one side of the fighting, Hitler pushed the majority of his troops to fight on the Western Front against the more well-equipped armies. That's like the U.S., Canadian, and British armies, right? Once again, underestimated the Soviets. Kind of a common thing is he really thought Slavic people sucked. He thought they were so below them, and they were so poorly equipped. He underestimated them again. And who do you think got to Hitler first?
Soviets.
The Soviets. Yeah, Soviet Union got to Hitler first. Spoiler alert, talk about that a bit. Anyways, the final major battle that Hitler ordered, so it's the last one that was actually like, okay, we have two sides and not one person defending, was the Battle of the Bulge. I'll put that right now. The Battle of the Bulge, a month-long battle. It took place in Belgium and Luxembourg, in a really deeply forested area, and it was really cold. You know, this happened, I think, in like January, February. It was very cold. Hitler stated this was the fight to decide whether we are to live or to die. The Allies won, and Hitler's quote was very accurate because he did in fact die. But yeah, you can see it's very snowy, very wooded area. There's this HBO show called Band of Brothers. It's a miniseries. It's a show. You know, it's kind of the same Private Ryan, which is a movie, but it's not real people fight. It's not documentary. But it's based off the 101st Airborne, the Easy Company, and they fight in the Battle of the Bulge. Really good show. Would highly recommend it if you're a history guy. If you don't like it. Going forward, during this whole time, April 12th, Roosevelt dies. Roosevelt does not live to see the end of the war. As you know, FDR is the president of the United States during World War II. He had polio for many years and was paralyzed from the waist down for a lot of his presidency. And he went to great lengths to hide it. So that's him, I think, with his granddaughter in a wheelchair. But, you know, as president of the United States and one of the most, respected presidents of the United States at the time, you gotta kind of show power. And in the eyes of many American people, if your president is, kind of frail and sickly, not gonna really do well with the people. So they kind of had this illusion that he was fine. He had braces and stuff to walk if he had to, but for the most part, he was wheelchair ridden. But yeah, he had a stroke and he passed away. I believe they were taking a portrait of him. They were doing painting a portrait of him, and then he passed. Anyways, this is FDR's vice president, as you all know, right? What happens when the president dies?
The vice
Vice president takes over. This is Harry Truman. Know that? Harry Truman took over and replaced him as the 33rd president of the United States. Any questions on this? Cool. So this is before the war. I just want to get the timeline right. This is before the war ended. It's after the Battle of Bulge, but they haven't won. Okay. Parker.
Oh, when the vice president takes over, like, does it start like a new 2 years, or does it just finish?
I believe they finished out that original. Yeah, so he had just gotten elected. I think a year before, re-elected. So I think it was like fourth term or something like that. Yeah, so you finish out that term. He was president for the rest of that term. All right. So meanwhile, in Europe, let me pause this real quick and then we'll play it. While the world's crashing down around Hitler, he wanted to fight to the last man. He did not want to give up. He still had this idea in his head. He's very arrogant. And he did not want to accept any type of surrender. Okay, it's either we live or we die. His generals, they started to disobey him, and they surrendered back to Germany. This is happening, it's happening a lot on the Eastern Front. It originally happened after Stalingrad, right? When they surrendered Stalingrad. He said he did not want them to surrender. They did anyways. Hitler began to act more erratic and crazy. He started yelling at his generals and firing them and stuff, talking down on the soldiers and the army. And then, actually, let's do this. I'm gonna put this video on. This is from a mini series called Downfall. It's about kind of like Hitler's rise and his downfall, essentially. Hence the name. But this is him getting word that there's basically nothing else they can do. The Battle of Berlin is happening, and the enemies are all closing in around him. The actor does a great job of impersonating Hitler, the way he talks and yells and speaks to people. He even gets like his little tics, right? Because he's got tweaking. Thank you.
Es ist dem Feind gelungen, die Front in breiter Formation zu besprechen. Im Süden hat der Gegner Zossen genommen und stößt auf Stahnsdorf vor. Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen Stadtrand zwischen Frohnau und Pankow und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie Lichtenberg-Marsdorf-Karlshorst gelangt.
Mit dem Angriff Steigers wird das alles in Ordnung kommen.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jodel, Krebs und Butter. Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steigers war ein Befehl! Wer schickt Sie? Das ist Baden! Sie können Befehl zu den Feinden! Oh mein bin ich derart belogen. Jeder hat mich belogen, sogar die SS. Die gesamte Generalität ist in 2000 Haufen niederträchtiger, treuloser Feiglinge.
Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie
Nicht
verbringen.
als Feiglinge, verreiter Versager.
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich.
Die Generalität ist doch der Stolz des deutschen Volkes. Sie ist ohne Ehren. Sie nennen sich Generale, weil Sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man besser Gabe hält. Jahrelang hat das Militär meine Aktionen behindert. Es hat mich jeden mordfesten Widerstand in den Weg gelegt. Ich hätte gut daran getan, von Jahren alle Höroffiziere liquidiert zu lassen, wie Stalin. Ich war Lehrer von der Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein das beste Feld, ganz Europa erobert. Verräter! Von allem Anfang an bin ich so verraten und betrogen worden. Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt am deutschen Volke. Aber alle diese Verräterinnen bezahlen. Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen. Sie werden saufen in ihrem eigenen Blut.
Bitte gerne. Jetzt beruhig dich doch.
Meine Befehle sind in den Wind gesprochen. Es ist unmöglich, unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Es ist aus. Der Krieg ist verloren. Aber wenn Sie, meine Herren, glauben, dass ich deswegen Berlin verlasse, irren Sie sich gewaltig. Eher jag ich mir eine Kugel durch den Kopf. Tun Sie, was Sie wollen.
All right, that's it. Isaac, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So. Sorry, captions turn off after the video. Weird. What do you guys think of that? It's funny, huh? It's funny, but you also kind of get in the mind of Hitler. So this actually this series was it was all taken from primary source documents. It's a really well written series. They actually got like people, you know, first-hand accounts of people that are close to Hitler and how he would talk to people. Actually, what this cabinet looked like and what this actual meeting was like. And what he was saying at the end that it's over. I'm not going to leave Berlin and think I'm crazy. I'll rather shoot myself. Pretty. He was saying that. It wasn't. Yeah, it's ironic. But at the same time, it's also kind of not. Like, he was saying exactly what he was going to do, which is pretty crazy. Let's see. So, yeah, his soldiers, his generals began to disobey him. He was acting more erratic. You guys see him twitching? He was sandwiched between the east and the west, and then he didn't leave Berlin. He hid in a bunker while everything was being bombed around him. In his final words, I am ending it today. Hitler shot himself in the head and his wife took a cyanide pill while the Battle of Berlin waged outside. So, Hitler's dead. Hitler's dead at this point. As we mentioned earlier, the Soviets got there first. That's the Soviet flag, right? And basically they just bombed the hell out of Berlin, to be frank with you. They really did. You see it's crumbling, ash. After Hitler's death, Germany promptly surrendered. You could tell the generals were kind of over it. They were like, we're gonna lose, we're all gonna die, let's surrender. But Hitler's like, no, not gonna let that happen. The day Germany surrendered is known as VE Day, also known as Victory in Europe Day, so you gotta know that, Victory in Europe Day. And that happened on May 8th, 1945, I don't think you know the date. I'm not gonna get that one, that's ridiculous. But yeah, this is nuclear Penn City, Germany surrenders, war in Europe ends. Why did I say war in Europe ends?
Because
Japan.
there's Japan and Italy.
They're still fighting in the Pacific. Well, Italy's out. Remember we talked about the invasion of Italy? So they're basically out at this point. Yeah, there's little fights going on a little bit, but think of them as a non-factor at this point. They're basically out. Mussolini's dead. That was part, right? Yeah, the war in Europe ends, but there's still a whole other beast in Japan, you know, in the east, in the Pacific, or the west, in the Pacific, that needs to be dealt with in the eyes of the American military, the Allies military. So, I put suicide in quotation marks because it's a little murky as to what happened to Hitler. You know, the whole idea is that he killed himself. That's what the Russians, Soviets said. But there's conflicting reports of what happened. There's random propaganda that he didn't die, and he survived, and he went off to South America. That's not really reinforced by anything. But you know, it was said. But you also got to remember that after World War II, what big war happened?
Cold War.
The Cold War. And I say big war as in it lasted a long time. Because it wasn't a huge, full-scale war, but there was a lot of espionage and spying. There was a lot of false information being let out. And these rumors are rumored to have been speculated or to be circulated by the Soviet Union afterwards, just to kind of get everybody wondering and kind of start confusion in between both sides. But I think it's safe to say that Hitler died that day. Okay. As to whether he killed himself, he shot himself, or whether the Soviets killed him, it doesn't matter. He's dead. So, just to not mess with the timeline again, I'm covering this afterwards because it flows better. But this happened when FDR was still alive. This is the Yalta Conference. So this happened in February. He died in
April 12th.
April? Yeah, something like that. Winston Churchill, United Kingdom. FDR, United States. I said this note. This obviously happened before he died. That's not a zombie. And then Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union, right there. They met at Yalta. And why did they meet? They wanted to plan the end of World War II and shape the post-war world. At this point, I told you, after Stalingrad, the writing was on the wall. The Axis powers are going to lose. We got this covered with the United States as well. We have more
Firepower.
we have more firepower, we have more people. We have the world's basically on our side. We have way more people in our actual alliance. We're going to win this. It's just a matter of when and how, and also a matter of what happens afterwards. Okay. So this kind of preface. Actually, I guess I don't even know if postface is the word, but this is after the Atlantic Charter, obviously. So the Atlantic Charter was between these two guys, England and the United States. Didn't include Stalin, because Stalin at this point was still a bad guy. I'd argue that he's still a bad guy. Why do you think this would have been an uneasy alliance?
Because Stalin
Stalin's kind of like a Hitler in his own right? He's also a horrible dictator, totalitarian. He's not. He doesn't hold elections. He's not a good guy. He actually was kind of in league with Hitler to start with, right? It's kind of like he turned to the other side later on. Very weary of him. These are also capitalist nations. They're communist nations. There's also tension there, which just gets added to as fuel to the fire later on. Anyways, these are the results of the Yalta Conference. I know that this is not as interesting as all that stuff. You need to know this as well. So this is what happens to Germany afterwards. Germany would be divided into 4 occupation zones. So that means Germany is basically cut into four squares. US takes a square, UK takes a square, Soviet Union takes a square, and then France takes a square. Berlin would also be divided the same way. So Berlin was actually split in half. West Berlin and East Berlin. West Berlin, what kind of government did that?
Is that Democrat?
Democratic government. East Berlin,
Still home.
they're communists under the control of the Soviet Union, of the US. Right. So, Soviet Union agreed to help fight Japan after Germany's defeat, and then also free elections were promised in Eastern Europe. That's basically the Soviet bloc, anything east of Germany, of east of Berlin. Stalin broke this promise almost immediately. And then the United Nations would be created to help keep peace. What's the United Nations?
Basically NATO.
So NATO kind of backs up the United Nations. NATO is kind of a tool for the United Nations. But what did Woodrow Wilson come up with after World War I?
League of Nations.
League of Nations, kind of similar to this, right? The League of Nations, which failed miserably, right? They appeased Hitler the whole time. The United Nations is much stronger. The U.S. is actually a part of it. This is basically just making Woodrow Wilson's dream into a real reality. They're like, okay, We thought we learned a lesson after World War I. No, we didn't. We actually made it worse. This time, we're actually going to try to keep the peace and make it better. Did they keep the peace and make it better?
No.
For a little bit. But I would say there's been a major conflict in the United States, or that the United States has been either directly or indirectly involved with for every decade since then, right? Basically, yeah, Korea, Vietnam, Middle East, so what's happening now, right? Cool. But why is this important? The Yalta Conference shaped post-war Europe, and it planted the seeds of the Cold War. Okay, this was an uneasy agreement between the West, or the democratic democracy, versus the Soviet Union, the USSR, east of Berlin. Okay, so know this stuff. This is really cool. This is all I'm going to do today. Because after this, we're going to turn our eyes to the end of the war. We're going to talk about how the United States and the Allies beat Japan. We're going to talk about how they beat Japan, which is very important. Anybody want a spoiler alert for me? How did the United States beat Japan?
Nagasaki.
They bombed them. What would they bomb them with?
With the new
Atom bombs.
Atom bomb, yes, dude.
The sun. I mean, technically it is.
I
But
realize nukes when those kinds
All right,
of nukes got
so everybody,
past the surface.
thank you all very much. I know there's a lot of information, but there's a lot of important information. I do have an exit ticket for you, so go ahead and open up those show notes real quick. You got 10 minutes to do it, and then it's lunchtime. Lunch!
good old fashioned American bomb.
Where you guys going? Taco truck?
Yeah, Taco.
I love how like every solution that the US is bomb.
They touched our
Cut that
boats.
for oil trade, bomb.
They touched our boats.
You need 2 burritos.
No, they touched our boats. So it's only fair we dropped the freaking sun on them. Not once, but twice.
this thing's still
Get that
going.
exit ticket, guys. Thank you.
This thing's still going, and we're dropping F-bombs like there's no tomorrow. Let's keep.
David, sit down.
We didn't. I didn't say that.
David, take a seat, please.
I said we dropped the sun on them not once, but twice.
Well,
Where'd they go?
I don't know.
we went behind the trash.
In the box?
No.
We went behind the trash.
I think it jumped over the box.
Okay. It went dong, and then it went over the box.
It went
into
dong.
the box. Yeah, it went boing, and then it went to the behind the trash.
Boing.
Like, boing. Is this thing still going? Okay.